Welcome to the Wellness Law Podcast, where wellness and the law meet for contemplation and collaboration. This podcast is brought to you by the Center for Health and Wellness Law. I am your host, Barbara Zabala. Welcome to the Wellness Law Podcast. Andy Regal, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to introduce you to everyone, to the listeners. I am so thrilled to have met you, and you are a former executive producer for MS Now, CNBC, a global head of video for the Wall Street Journal, and you worked for 25 years in media as an executive producer. And now you are really focusing in on workplace bullying, which is how your content is relevant to my Wellness Law podcast, because a big focus of my work as a wellness lawyer is workplace wellness and the law. And your new book that's coming out in April called Surviving Bully Culture, and I think there's some other taglines on that title,
There is.
that you can explain, is very relevant to a lot of the work that I like to provide for my clients who are often wellness vendors and brokers who provide wellness services in the workplace. And so I think your topic is extremely relevant to workplace wellness law, and I'm excited that you're here. So thank you, Andy, for joining me on the Wellness Law Podcast.
Barbara, thank you. It's a privilege to be with you. And when I saw the opportunity, wellness and law is all that I'm about these days. So thank you. This is the perfect podcast to be a guest on, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, I'm excited to get your book when it comes out. So do you want to tell us the full title of your book and what it is trying to message to
Sure.
the world?
Happy to do it. It's called Surviving Bully Culture, a career navigating workplace bullying and a guide for healing. And so what the book is and what my advocacy is about is that I experienced 25 years out of the 27 that I was in television production. I experienced workplace bullying in a variety of ways. Some you could describe as incivility, other I would describe as degradation. And what I did was I started the book writing my story, and then I realized there was a broader story here about workplace bullying more generally. So I took my experience in the microcosm, and then I interviewed dozens of worldwide experts, psychiatrists, psychologists, neurobiologists, legal scholars, and began to understand what an epidemic this is here in the States and around the world. So now I have my story, I have worldwide experts giving it context, and then I created my own coping and healing guide towards the back of the book to help victims who I hope they enjoy my story, I hope they learn from it, but then they can really use my book to cope and heal, because there aren't many resources available to do just that.
Yeah, and before I hit record, we were talking a bit about how you mentioned bullying in the workplace is legal. And I think that's such an important point because as a victim of bullying, you may feel like this is wrong. And morally, ethically, this is wrong. And yet there's nothing illegal about it. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what you're trying to do to rectify the fact that bullying is so pervasive in the workplace, and yet it's legal.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, as I talk informally with people, and this is not scientific, but then I'll get into the data. But in my experience, anecdotally, 98% of people that I tell about the work that I'm doing, they'll ask me, they'll say, "Oh, I can't wait to tell you, or I want to tell you about what happened to me." Almost everyone has some experience with this issue. And maybe I'll take a step back, if you would allow me, to at least give you my definition. There's a number of good definitions of workplace bullying. Mine is very simple. It's repeated and targeted conduct that has no benefit to either the employee or the business. It's that simple, but it has to be repeated and targeted. This isn't about a boss having a bad day. This isn't about low blood sugar. This is about a person being targeted by a manager, supervisor, and boss who decides for whatever reason they don't like you. And I will also say that all the research bears this out, and I know I'm this way, The people that are targeted, Barbara, are not the apathetic people who come in late, don't do assignment. The people that are targeted for bullying are those of us that are devoted, loyal, and productive. And we're good team players. We don't want to get involved in the politics. We're good colleagues. Those are the people that the bosses decide that bothers me for some reason. So, having said that, yes, the key message here is that bullying is legal. Now, people might say that can't be. It is true. What they might be thinking about is that if you are in a protected class, let's say you're over 50 and someone says, and I gave you this example earlier, "Hey, old man, we don't need your kind around here. You have old ideas. We get out of here, or we don't want you here." Okay. Then you have a cause of action, if you will, and you can use the civil rights codes in this country to get a lawyer and make a claim against that boss and the company you're working for. But we both know that doesn't happen very often. Bosses are not that dumb to use that kind of language. If it happens, good for you, you can get a lawyer. But most of us, that doesn't happen. So
Right.
the kind of abuse we're talking about, everything from one end of the spectrum, which might be sarcasm, which is a form of bullying, all the way to what I think is the most extreme and brutal and hurtful and damaging form of bullying, which being ostracized and then dismissed, disregarded, fired, let go. All these things have happened to me, and they're happening to millions and millions of people. Now, what the data shows is the latest nationally recognized survey done by the Workplace Bullying Institute and Zogby shows that 50 million people in this country identify as bullying victims. In other words, when they were surveyed, it happened to them within the last 12 months, 50 million people. Another 20 million say they've seen it happen and it's had an effect on them. This is an epidemic in our country, and we have to put a stop to it. And we have to help people understand what's happening to them, and we have to help businesses understand how they can change, even without specific laws. And there are laws going through state legislatures. It's taken decades to get to this point. So I have a remedy that we can talk about. Where we don't have to wait for the politicians to pass laws to get things changed in the workplace.
Yeah, and I do wanna talk about it because I think it's a brilliant idea. You were talking about instituting standards, codes of conduct in the workplace that employees would have to agree to so that bullying could be minimized in the workplace. Tell me more about that idea.
Sure. My feeling is that in the history of the workplace, Barbara, no one's ever asked to be bullied or mistreated. Nobody wants that. And all the data shows that not only obviously is this good for employees in the sphere that you're in, the wellness world, right? That in my case and the cases of millions of people, they have anxiety, hypervigilance, digestive problems, recurring nightmares about what's going on at work, and sometimes harmful thoughts. I experienced all of these during my career, and I was an executive producer, so I had to put a good mask on and lead my team. In lieu of state legislatures passing laws, and that may happen in the next year or two or three, but in lieu of that, all companies have to do, and for your listeners who are employees or supervisors, managers, and bosses, or CEOs or owners of business, you can do this tomorrow. Create with your HR department a page or two that constitute codes of conduct, codes of behavior that are expected in the workplace. That's it. We do this for sexual harassment as we should in every role we have. We watch a video, we have to sign it, and take a questionnaire and answer it and doing all these things and sign it that we understand, we watch the videos, and we're not going to do it. And if we do, there's going to be repercussions. That's all I'm asking for here. And you don't even have to watch a video. It's pretty simple. We all know how we want to be treated in the workplace. And again, you and I talked about this earlier. I'm not asking for heaven or utopia or nirvana in the workplace. I have a saying that where there are people at work, there are bullies at work. And that's okay. We're humans. We have conflict. Work is about conflict. It's going to happen. It'd be great if we never had conflict at work and we all made $1 million and we just had fun at work. We know that's not the reality. And I've worked for tough bosses. I worked for a boss who said, "I'm tough but fair." No, he was actually abusive and unfair. And that's the work we have to do. But in order to have codes of conduct, you have to have the CEO, president, the board, whatever it is, sign on that they agree. And I think it's pretty hard to be on the record saying we don't agree that our employees should be treated civilly. But we make it clear this is not about putting your arm around your employees all the time and being nice. We have low blood sugar. We have a bad day. We had a fight with our partner. Whatever that's all allowed. Of course it is. Here's the difference. In my experience, such that it was, I had bully bosses who were abusing me, and I was scorned and threatened with my job for a boss. In one example, I created a television show for NBC for the entire network, making millions of dollars for my company. And I still got that behavior because most of us bully victims. We go back to our desks and try harder. That's why we're good targets. And
Mm.
that's where the wellness, your area, really diminishes and is destroyed and damaged. So all we have to do is get companies to create these codes of conduct. The CEO has to say, yes, this is what I want. This is what I demand. And then there have to be repercussions. So if somebody, so HR then has the autonomy and the authority. So when people come and say, I'm being bullied, they can investigate without repercussion because HR departments right now, they're paid by the CEO. They're paid often by the number 2 or 3 person. So they have no ability to deal with these issues. But if everybody agrees, then they can have that, they can investigate, and they can do something about it. And I guarantee you, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah. And I mentioned how perfect of a fit this whole concept of addressing workplace bullying could be incorporated into already existing corporate wellness programs. Companies year after year invest a lot of time and money in employee wellness programming, which, as I mentioned to you, feels oftentimes very paternalistic
Yep.
and oftentimes not really effective because if you have pervasive workplace bullying in your work environment, it doesn't matter what wellness activities you might throw at employees, like walking challenges or lunch and learns or whatever it might be. If there's bullying, that's going to disrupt any advancements you might have in workplace well-being if it didn't exist. Why not incorporate the more of the social determinants of wellness, the workplace environment, including the social environment that is impacting people's well-being, and use that as also part of your strategy to improve employee productivity and a more positive work environment.
I'm so thrilled to have this conversation and to have your listeners hearing this conversation because I've never heard that particular point. And it's so crucially important that joining a gym, your business says join a gym and you get this, or your insurance does that if you join a gym, and all these different things. You can do anything you want that your business suggests you do, and maybe you get an accommodation for it, or maybe they offer you a day off, or you get a discount on your insurance if you join a gym. I don't care what you do. When you come to work and all you want to do is do a good job, contribute, and feel like you matter. There's a thing in my work, maybe yours too, called mattering. It's a little bit of a buzzword now, but it's apropos. We want to feel like we matter and we're there 8, 10, 12, in my experience, sometimes 14 hours a day. We want to matter.
Mm.
And I often felt not only didn't I matter, and so many bully victims I talk to, not only don't they feel like they matter, but they feel like the boss is out to get them or to hurt them or to hinder their career. And so think about it that I'll give you a great anecdote if you'll allow me. So these fitness things where the company says, join a gym and you'll get some kind of accommodation. When I was at the Wall Street Journal, I haven't thought about this in a while. This is a perfect example. They did a whole story about these wellness programs where you prove to your company, they have a contest, 10,000 steps a day for a month, and you win a prize or something. So the Wall Street Journal did this great story where they interviewed all kinds of people about how they did it. And they found most of the people, a number of people, it was a great article. They put their Fitbit or their watch on the leg of their dog or cat. And so as their dog or cat walked around the house, ran around the house, did whatever they do, That's how they got to their 10,000 steps as opposed to so I just remembered that. But so those things, if you actually do them, can be helpful to your health and well-being, but not if you're being bullied at work, such to the extent that not only it's happening at work, you bring these things home, just on wellness. You bring the bully boss's voice, scorn, sarcasm home with you, either in your head or the bully boss is on your shoulder and they're renting space. And so it's all encompassing. It's an awful feeling. And the other thing about, and the worst part of it is you lose what I call psychological safety. You dread going to work. I've coached people. I have a coaching business where I work with bullying targets to cope and heal. Some of them cry on the way to work. They're literally crying on the way to work. Others don't even make it into work. And this is where we get into, if you don't care about your employees' well-being, you should care about the bottom line of your business. And all the data proves it hurts your employees and their productivity, and it kills your bottom line. If your employees are dreading to come to work, they're spending time at each other's cubicles, complaining about the bully. It's amazing how much loss of productivity you get when your employees feel like they're being abused.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the point. If you believe in workplace wellness and the true goal of wellness, which is to improve employee productivity and overall well-being, then you've got to tackle the bullying because otherwise it's going to negate everything else you're trying to do on the wellness front. Yeah, your topic is extremely timely and important. And I want you to let the listeners know when your book is coming out, how they can
Yeah.
get a copy, and tell them about this conference that you are also putting together for later in the year.
Thank you. And our work, yours and mine, and the people in the wellness community is so aligned. We just want people to be able to go to work, do their work. And yes, there's conflict, there's problems that arise, but they should feel well when they're at work, right?
Mhm.
And they may bring illnesses to work, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the damage done by the workplace. Now, having said that, there's not enough dialogue. Canada is ahead of us. Europe is ahead of us on this issue. Africa is ahead of us on this issue. So everything I'm doing is trying to create more awareness and dialogue because it's amazing how many people this is happening to, how many it's hurting. I write on social media. If you don't mind, I have a Facebook group if people want to join it, completely free. It's called Navigating Workplace Bullying. And it's mostly for anybody who's feeling this way, that they're being abused in the workplace and are looking for a community and a place to cope and heal. I have a coaching business. If people are looking for someone to talk to, somebody that understands their issue and the overarching issues and want to cope and heal from this, they can reach out to me at andyregal.com. It's that simple, ANDYREGL.com, andyregal.com. And I love working with bully victims because they feel so alone. That's like a mantra you hear. I feel alone. They don't know where to go, how to do it. And I have a whole approach to coping and healing. And then we are, again, planning a conference in Washington, D.C., but it'll be available on Zoom in the fall, which will deal with HR, wellness, the legal aspects of this, so much of what you do, and also for bullying victims, those three constituencies. So if people want to order my book, and thank you for allowing me to promote it, I really think people will enjoy my story as much as it's kind of heart-wrenching at times. It's uplifting. It's hopeful. The book is Surviving Bully Culture, and you can pre-order it at andyregal.com, and it'll also be available very shortly. And once this podcast up on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Surviving Bully Culture by Andy Regal.
Awesome. I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. I feel very fortunate to have been connected with you,
Me
and
too.
I am looking forward to your book and the conference and seeing what kind of waves you can make in this space. So thank you, Andy, for being on the podcast.
An absolute pleasure, Barbara. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Law Podcast. You can find more wellness law resources by visiting the Center for Health and Wellness Law website at www.wellnesslaw.com, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media. Until the next episode, stay well, stay hopeful, and stay legal.